During COVID, we were at all-time highs in savings account. Credit card balances were low. And then right after COVID ended and we got back to the regular world, all of a sudden inflation began to hit close to 39-year highs. Here's the question. Will inflation go down in 2024? Stay tuned, and we're going to give you some good education on what that looks like. What is inflation? According to Investopedia, let me read this to you real fast and we'll get into the details. Number one, inflation is the rate at which price of goods and services rise. Inflation is sometimes classified into three types. This is important, folks. Demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built-in inflation. Number three, the most commonly used inflation indexes are the consumer price index and the wholesale price index. Inflation can be viewed positively or negatively depending on the individual's viewpoint and rate of change. That comes down to the level of responsibility and the level of coachability and the level of accountability, of course. Those with tangible assets like property or stock commodities may like to see some inflation as that raises the value of their assets. So let's get into this. What is demand pull inflation? Okay, I'll make it simple. You get a job. Companies, your salary goes up, but you represent a million other people whose salaries go up, who drive to work, who have to get gas. That means there's going to be more demand on gas. This is going to increase the prices of all that. Number two, cost push inflation. Think of a natural disaster, and then think of oil and gas and how that has an impact on it when these things seemingly come out of nowhere. And then think of built-in inflation, and this is where your salary may rise. If I have a company and all my employees' salary rise, does that mean now I have to charge my product and increase the value of my product to my clients to keep up with my employees? That's what built-in inflation is, just to keep it real simple. So as we stay on inflation, it's really a rise in prices, which could translate as the decline of purchasing power over time. Here's my favorite example, right? I have $10,000 in cash right here. You've seen this in other videos. And I jump in the spaceship, and I've been in the spaceship for about an hour, time machine. I come back, but it's 7 years later, because remember, relativity in time. Anyway, that's the Tesseract. But I come back, I still have 10,000, but my buying power is only 7,000. That's the best way to look at inflation. It looks the same, but it don't feel the same. It's like a stealth bomber. You see the effects of it afterwards. So when your inflation rate goes higher, typically if you're running out of money on the 30th of every month, but now rates go higher, inflation goes higher, you could be running out of money on the 20th. And this is what you need to be prepared for as we work through this video, because we're going to share with you strategies on how to high step through inflation because of accountability and responsibility. So what is causing it? Inflation is caused by the imbalance between supply and demand. Printing and giving away more money to citizens or loaning new money into existence, that's going to cause inflation. We know that since COVID, it's been north of $10 trillion. Number two, gas prices go up, which increases overall inflation. Listen, I said it best. And right now we're in November of 2023. I will time this because it's important. Inflation is different based on where you live here in America. If you're in California right now, gas is going to cost you $5.05. If you're in New Jersey, it's going to cost you $3.23. That's like a 60-70% difference. That is inflation at its best. Supply chains were clearly disrupted during COVID-19 pandemic, as well as energy prices that were spiked during and after the Russia invade of the Ukraine. By the way, I went to the Ukraine, and I can tell you what that looked like once another country comes in to try and take over a country. It is atrocious, and the things that are happening there, the world should know about even more. Not to stand on my soapbox, but I just want to let you know that you could see inflation in many different ways. And then, last but not least, legally devaluing, reducing the value of the legal tender currency. Let me just keep it simple. That's when the government of any country gets to decide to change the rules and move the goalpost on the money or the currency. Period. End of story. The things I just mentioned, whether it's gas, whether it's supply chain, whether it's energy, whether it's printing money or devaluing money, is all out of your control. What's important, though, is to understand what is in your control and how you can position your dollars properly. We'll get into that right now. When will this go away, folks? Listen, I'm not here to tell you when inflation is going to go away or not. I think it's here to stay. And it's been here for a long time, and I don't see it leaving, right? It's clear that inflation today isn't close to where it was about a year ago, and that's good news. It's trending down. I know right after COVID, we were at almost 39-year highs. But will inflation be gone by 2024? Not exactly. Inflation is the sort of thing that never really goes away. It's key points. Inflation levels began to rise in 2021 and soared in 2022. We talked about that. It hit almost a 39-year high. Though inflation has been cooling pretty steadily since the start of 2023, doesn't mean it's going to be gone by 2024. Inflation is a persistent economic factor that doesn't really go away. It's a measurement. And by the way, it also measures when things are really healthy. So it's good to know both sides. And I always talk about it. The person responsible, the person coachable and accountable will always do good no matter what economic environment we're in when it comes to the money time freedom. And according to the Federal Reserve, which oversees monetary policy for the United States, acknowledges that inflation is something that generally cannot be helped. The Fed itself is satisfied with an annual inflation rate of about 2% in the long term. The central bank feels that the level is conducive to economic growth and stability. As such, consumers should not necessarily expect 2024 to be an inflation-free year, nor any year for that matter. But could annual inflation get down to 2% in 2024? There's a very good possibility. So stay tuned, folks, because now is the time to understand the difference between good and great when it comes to your decision making. Check this out, folks. Inflation forecast. Falling inflation does not mean falling prices. It just means that the increase stops. So check out this chart. It goes from 2010 to 2028. I'd be real careful from now until 2028, assuming it's just going to be 2% every year. Nonetheless, that's always the goal, and that's where they always want the economy to be. We know that there's also a presidential election year coming up in 2024. Could cause some disturbance, could cause some vibration, so you always got to be aware of that. But once again, I'm going to go back to the same thing over and over again. What is your economic game plan? Who's your top five? Is all of your planners on the same page for the benefit of your thinking? Protect against inflation. So what does that mean? Income versus inflation. Listen, if you're making 100 grand and inflation's at 7% and you get a rise and you're making 103, well, you're not keeping up with inflation, right? Because inflation's at 7, your increase was only 3%. So what does that mean to your money time freedom? Once again, diversify within and amongst asset classes and make sure your money is working for you even when you're working your 9-to-5 job. Grow your money faster than it actually loses its value, because you can't control what your salary is going to be, but you can control what you do at night on either a side hustle, second job, and be able to create more liquidity yourself. Thank you for checking out the video. Go ahead and click the link below. One of the team members here at Epic will take you through our success process. There's no obligation on your part. And they will share with you strategies that sit and fit with your core values when it comes to your money time freedom. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share. Every other day, we're dropping a new educational video for your benefit.